You are listening to Down Home. The Rhythm of Life by Michael Rosen. Hand on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Hand on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Hand on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Hand on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Hand in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Hand on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Hand on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hand on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Hand on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Hand on your life, feel the rhythm of time. This episode, we share some of life's rhythms with Jay's dad, David Skinner, as he tells us about being a young black musician in Halifax back in the 1960s and 70s.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Down Home, the Nova Scotian experience by two black men. And today we have a special episode, and I'm Jay Jones. And as always, we have the wise one himself, Derek Wise.
What's up?
And we have a special guest today. We have my father, David Skinner, the man, the myth, the rhythm. We call him Dave Rhythm Stick Skinner. So, how you doing, Dad? Thanks for coming.
I'm doing fine. Nice to be able to help out here, and let's move on. Very cool.
Awesome.
Right on. Well, I wanted to just sort of start off talking about your experience in Nova Scotia. So, what was it like for a young man living in Halifax in that era, like the 60s, the 70s? You must have seen so much, but in your, what you experienced.
What it was a very unusual time where you had to be careful where you were, what area of the city you were going into, because there were gangs. And if you were a black man in 1960 going into where I live now in the North End, you had to be very careful of some of the families, the Quins and whatnot, trying to beat you up.
Wow.
We also had problems with the American sailors who would come in and try and take our women away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we remember that, actually.
Yeah, that still goes on today.
That went on throughout the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, at the Liquor Dome, everyone wearing sailor suits. I was like, "Is this the YMCA?"
Yeah.
Wow.
And interesting that you say YMCA, because in the 60s I was at QEH, the high school. Mm-hmm. And there was a white owned and group called Twix at the YMCA. Okay. And you had to know someone if you wanted to go and dance.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Other than that, it was Halifax's private parties, house parties and stuff like that. The music was like the Raindrops and Bucky Adams and Joe Seeley. I remember sitting on the steps of Dara Street Hall listening to Joe Seeley and Bucky Adams.
Oh,
and
wow.
Later on, I got a phone call from Joe saying that his drummer, who was an American, couldn't get across the border, and would I do a gig with him in Dartmouth? And that was, I remember saying to Joe, I'm not half the drummer your Chuck is. And he said, don't worry about that. I'll tell you everything you know. All you have to do is listen to me. So I showed up at the gig. He had a Hammond organ playing the bass pedals, and he would yell over to me and say, Dave, this is how this tune's going to go. And away we went. It was wonderful.
Yeah. So you learned by kind of improv, eh? You know what I mean?
Yes.
On the fly.
Totally. Yeah. I used to stand up next to my mom's refrigerator, which had a radio on it and listen to every song that came through so I could try and learn, because I knew that in Halifax, you had to be versatile. It was more than just being in a black drummer. You had to be able to play country. You had to be able to play Bing Crosby, all that stuff.
Right.
Well, I mean, that kind of lends sort of to the next question, like sort of having different eras, like, you know, all those musics and just being versatile. And I sense like in the 60s and 70s, you kind of have to be versatile just to be survival, knowing when to fit in. And do you recollect any racism or lessons that your parents might have received, Gene Skinner and Doug Skinner?
Yeah, they were, Mom was from Fredericton and knew a lot of people from that area, and people like Willie O'Ree, who you have to understand that there were many places where if you were from New Brunswick and you came to Halifax, you would go to a house party or get called in for dinner and stuff like that. So I met, due to Mom and Dad's influence, I met a lot of high-end sports people. Rocky Jones would drop into the house. Dad was part of a bowling league, and then he ended up being manager of what were they called, the midgets hockey, and a lot of people would come to talk about hockey and the different sports that he was involved with. He managed. He did really well with that. And then, so because of all this influence and people dropping in, you dropped in for dinner, and you talked about the way things are going in your area and what could be done in our area. There was violence in Halifax. There was a time where the police, if you were driving, if they would be driving along the street, and if they saw someone who might be of interest, you could be thrown in the backseat of the car and beaten up.
And I mean, being of interest is just being black, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. So that must have been crazy. So Doug experienced some of that then, I guess, right? Different groups of like the 50s, the 60s. My father was on the railway. He was a porter. Then he came home and worked at Klein's selling shoes. And then I remember him one day trying to get a pay raise, and was told that the Brunswick Street group would decide whether or not he merited the black rate of pay.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, very much.
There was, that happened to me as well at Buckley's back in the 70s, 80s. I was working at Buckley's selling drums,
right?
And I asked for a raise, and my owner said that she would see if my salary merited what a black man would make on Godigan Street.
Wow. So just to clarify, Buckley's is a music supply store. Where was it? On Godigan Street?
Yeah, just around the corner of Cornwallis and Godigan.
I remember Buckley's well.
Yeah, a couple doors down from that pharmacy that was on the corner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I remember going there after church sometimes to visit you after church and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mom would make sure that you came by, and we had contact.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Now, So being able to see all these sort of musical things, and it sounded like underground kind of times where these secret dances and everything. But what was that moment, that spark that made you want to go boom bap on the drum? You know what I mean? That really hit you and go, oh man, this is it. This is that feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It was an interesting time because Mom had a foster son from the colored home, Teddy Johnson.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, and Teddy was going to St. Pat's, and they were starting a band there, a marching band.
Mhm.
And he went for a couple of lessons and came home and said, "No, I don't like it." And he gave me the drumsticks, and I went to the marching band, and the guy didn't like the way I was holding the sticks or said I was playing too loud. So I went fine. And but I was going to QEH. I was about 18, I think.
Mhm.
And walking across the Commons, a fellow came up to me and said, "I have a little rock and roll band. Do you know of any drummers?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm one." And he said, "Do you have a drum set?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we're getting together every Sunday. Why don't you come by with your drum set?"
Mhm.
So at the time, I was working at Sobeys as a carryout boy, and I knew that somebody had a drum set. So I went and bought it for $75. Showed up at Earl's place, and my dad was a piano player originally in the area and had this huge collection of 78s. So we would listen every Sunday. And unbeknownst to me, the drummers I was listening to were Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. So I had a great swing groove.
Right.
So I showed up at the gig or at Earl's place and said, "Okay, what's the first tune?" And it was "And I Love Her" by the Beatles. And so I started playing the swing beat, and Earl stopped the band and said, "That's not the right beat." And I said, "Well, that's my beat." And he said, "Don't you know how to play eighth notes?" And I said, "No." So he showed me. And then he said, "I thought you could play drums." I said, "Well, these are my drums, and I can play this beat."
Wow.
So I was in the band, but the neat thing about Earl was he was intelligent musically. He would show the bass player his part, show me my part, show me write out the words for the singer. And then the idea was every Sunday we had to have that song together. So I would come home, set my drums up downstairs in the cellar, start playing and listen to all the mice and rats run away, and then learn a tune.
Wow, yeah. Now, Earl's place, was that the place that was behind Margaret Road? That's where you met my mother, right?
Right. No,
Yeah, no.
Earl's place was on the corner of Agricola, and just before you went over across the Commons.
Right.
It was
Still in the North End.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would learn a song, and before we knew it, we were the house band at Brunswick Street United, and we were all playing all the songs of the day, whatever was on the radio, we would learn and play.
So essentially, you pretty much self-taught you self-taught yourself to play the drums. So that's pretty interesting, because of a few people we've had on this podcast this year have mentioned you and being an excellent teacher, and they learned lots of stuff from you, and you kind of mentored them in certain ways. You know what I mean? So
I felt because of my background that I had to pass the information on.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
great. Now, this is an interesting aspect of that. Now, from your perspective, is there a difference between being Black and being a Black musician? Is there? Yeah. What would those differences be?
If you knew someone where you could go, like there were jam sessions at St. Lawrence church hall in Fairview.
Right.
If you knew someone and you could go there, someone would drive you, you would go there and sit in. And the reason you would do that is to keep on learning new material and stuff like that. So as a Black musician, all of a sudden you're on stage with a bunch of white musicians, but you're all playing a particular song that it might be My Girl by The Temptations or whatever. You'd learn, you'd figure out, you'd go and watch and then figure out what you needed to learn to sit in and play. And music was the thing that it crossed all barriers. You weren't really aware of your color when you were sitting on stage playing with people.
So there was a certain level of acceptance
Yes,
amongst
exactly that
different races of musicians, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did that continue on after the jam session? Like in other type of social situations, if you ran into a musician that you used to jam with, would there still be that acceptance on the street?
Yes. Yeah. You guys would sort of talk about how the last jam session went,
right?
And perhaps what people could work towards next, stuff like that. So yeah, that always transcended the color idea.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was,
The language of music,
Yeah.
it is universal. And if you
Yeah.
can see from that sort of level, everything's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you talked a little bit about the 60s and 70s. One of the big moments in Halifax was what happened to Africville back in the day, and the response from the community was a lot of protests and things like that. Do you remember any of those protests or
I
any
do.
other? Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle, Raymond Lawrence, had a boat that he would keep in Africville. He was married to Ev Carvery, and her family was one of the founding families in Africville. So Raymond and I would go over and we'd go out on his little rowboat and catch pollock catch pollock and different cods and stuff. When the city decided to take over Africville, they did it under the guise of, we have a land that we could put a bridge on. We also have, it would be better for the inhabitants if there was no running water, there was no sewage or sewer. So maybe we should take the land and make it better. But what they didn't know was that the village of Africville, and it was a village, was really self-sufficient. They lived, they had ways of getting around the way city council saw them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I moved to an area which had been part of the reclaimed land of Africville. And my neighbor at the time was an older lady in her 70s. And I remember saying to her, how long have you been here? And she said, well, when the city decided to take the land from the village of Africville, we got a call at 5 a.m. saying that we had an opportunity to, if we had $3,000, to buy a cottage lot that was going to become available. So what the city did was go to the residents of Africville, and if you had a lease, that was one thing, but they offered we'll take you to Mulgrave Park and we'll buy your land for $1 or $5. So someone in city council made an awful lot of money buying these what they called cottage lots,
right?
And then giving the Africville residents very, very little money.
Yeah.
If they didn't have a lease, then their land was expropriated.
Wow.
So what I saw was walking along the street one day was a whole line of garbage trucks with people sitting in them, and stoves and fridges and stuff being headed towards Mulgrave Park. And I knew of one family, gentleman had barbecue in his tub. He didn't know where it belonged or how to use it.
Mhm.
They had just given it to him, and he'd moved into Mulgrave Park.
Wow.
Later on, I moved into where was I, Jason?
The Hydrostone, right? Or
I've been here, but it was
Uniac. Yeah.
thank you. That's what it
Uniac
was.
Square. Yeah.
Uniac
Square, okay.
Yeah. Even I forgot. We're getting old, Dad.
Some things stay, some things don't.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Uniac Square. I remember. I mean, I spent all my Sunday afternoons there after church,
Yeah,
with Nanny in my early years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So there would be a lot of residents from Africville and the Uniac Square area.
Yes, very much. But
Yeah.
I think between the Mulgrave Park and Uniac Square, yes.
Between the two. Yeah, that's interesting. I had no idea that the city offered residents to buy plots. It wouldn't have been a full development because a lot of that land's empty right now. But I didn't know it must be towards the north end of Africville, I guess you could say, right? That they
Yes.
offered the plots. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because there
Yeah,
are houses there
Yeah.
towards the north end of where Africville used to be.
Right.
Think in terms of where the tavern, all the way,
Yes.
all the way straight along that bunch of houses where the drive. We're
Yeah.
talking about the same thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. I had no idea because it literally the residents were offered pennies on the dollar
Yeah,
for their land. Like I think I read one story where a lady it was basically, it added up to $500, but she was given initially like $40,
yeah.
and
A
then
lot of
and then payments over like a 5-year period that ended up to $500 for her
Yes.
land, and they basically just bulldozed her house.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then for them to turn around and then sell those plots of empty land for $3,000, that's something else.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you what you're up against, man. Especially the laws that are written where they can manipulate you into sort of giving up your land.
But just a follow-up question, just to change direction just a little bit. You're currently living in Halifax.
Yeah.
But you have, through your music career, you've traveled a little bit, right?
Yes.
Around.
Yeah.
Was there any particular reason why you decided to stay in Halifax? I know it's home, but seeing other places, was there any motivation to actually move away ever?
It was interesting because my career pitted me against being versatile.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing in 74, 75, a band called Xylan, which I signed a contract to give them a year, and we went all over the place. Montreal, we pretty much Newfoundland a lot, and that's playing every night. Now, one of the downside of that was I signed on knowing full well that I wasn't going to get paid very much.
Right.
But the music drew me, and the places that we played and stuff. We all camped out in an SMT bus. I was at the back of the bus, underneath the wheels, or above the wheels, I should say. That was my bunk. But the music was incredible, and to some of the people, that was 75. I'm still really, really good friends, and it was a family kind of thing. One day I got a call from Charlie Acord asking me if I could give him a month of my time, and he said that we were going to open for Procol Harum, the band that did Whiter Shaded Pale, and we were going to 18 nights in Germany. So I saw Berlin. I saw all of the main places. We would play a half an hour in front of Procol Harum, and then they would do a 2-hour set. We'd wait for them, and then go find an English pub to have a beer.
Cool. Wow.
So there were things like that which contributed to me getting better and better in those kinds of situations, and then being able to pass the information on. I realized that I had been very lucky to be in those kinds of situations.
Wow. But then the call of home came and you had to go home.
It was funny because I had the opportunity to join Matt Minglewood and the Universal Power.
Oh, wow.
And because the bass player with that band was Donnie Hand, and we were together in Xylem. So they were in St. John, New Brunswick, the band was, and Donnie said, if you want to join, you can. And I rehearsed, I rehearsed with them. But then after being on the road for about 5 years, I said, no, I'm coming home. So I did. And interestingly enough, when I came back home, there was an agent who needed someone to play country, to play rock and roll. So he kept me busy for the next 4 years. He would call me, I've got a band that needs a drummer. I'd go out on the road, come back. Maybe the band would break up, and then I'd go to a jam session, and somebody else would ask me, why don't you come back? I need a drummer. And I did that for, quite some time.
Yeah. And also the Mason Chapman band, that was
started.
From that, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. And, that you guys are pretty well known, in Canada and stuff like that. Doris Mason, renowned jazz pianist and stuff like that. And I remember I actually still have one of your albums that you did. And I was always fascinated by the song Just One Bullet. Because I was like, oh, that's my father playing, and you singing too. And I was like, oh man, he can drum and sing. He's doing his thing, So it was pretty cool. And you know what's funny though, Dad? I really want to say, I know we always haven't been close, but we have been getting closer over the years. But the funny thing is I realize sort of how much I did get from you, and not knowing I got it from you, in the sense of, like, I love music. I mean, I don't play drums per se, but like the words that I say are rhythmic, and there's a pattern and everything like that, and I embrace that side of it. I actually love it because it's really, and that's the thing, like you talking about music really makes me know where I get that feeling from, because I feel the same way sometimes, and have had these great experiences in band situations and learning, and it was kind of, it's something I always had in me since a child. So I want to thank you for that, because it that rhythm has brought us together, over the last 10 years or so, where we've kind of healed our relationship, and, and our relationship just was not good because we were just apart. Right. And we didn't know.
I agree.
We didn't know what the connection was, but once you realize that connection, it's an amazing thing. So I just wanted to always say that to you, and I
thank you.
I love you for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I love you too. One of the bands that I'm playing in now is an African-based band called Moja Makani, and they did an album called Rhythms of Life, and I totally get what Jason's saying, because we have that rhythm of life. We connect a lot.
Yeah.
That's this is really special. Oh my goodness, man! I'm glad I was a part of this. You guys, to connect and have this conversation and be a part of this. Dave, do you have anything to end our conversation on at all?
Just the fact that, again, it's rhythms of life, and they're out there, and you grab them and hold them dear, and whether it's a drum set or what have you, the more you work at it. One of the biggest things I've always said, if someone says, well, what's your secret? It's perseverance. The more you do it, the better it gets. And at one point, working at Music Stop, I got hired to go up to Cape Breton and put on, for about 3 years, the drum show. And I was around, and all of these really famous drummers, Bernard Purdy, Billy Cobham, and all of them had the rhythms of life. Mm-hmm. Whatever they were doing, they participated, and even though it was a clinic that they were doing for other people, you saw that same thread.
Yeah,
awesome, man. That's great.
Indeed. Yeah.
Jay Jones, take us out, man.
Yeah, well, Dad, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad I can hear some of your story, learn a little bit more, and connect a little bit more, and know that rhythm of life is still within us all, and we're just living and learning and getting through some crazy times, but and music always gets us through. Connections and family gets us through, and we just have to remember those, that we're all in this together, as they've been saying for the last year and a half. But it's been our pleasure to talk to you. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Love you guys.
All right.
Love you too. Bye. Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
You have been listening to Down Home. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, yeah. On a high plateau, from the one down below to the future of the funk, getting lost in the flow. Contact with the spark magex. Now it's time to flex with the force from the soul, reaching all aspects, getting deep, no time to sleep as you reach your next phase.
The song Breaking New Ground from The Breakdown.
A brand new path, breaking down the sum to one. Feeling free, I just laugh with the joy of a beat boy, just kicking it live. A connection so strong, transcribed with the vibe like magic prescribed.